Hey guys, it's Lauren. So for today's video, I'm back with another tutorial. I'm going to be teaching you the basics of After Effects in 10 minutes. This video serves as a beginner's guide for people who have never used After Effects and are looking to get into it. I'll be running through the layout of After Effects as well as core concepts such as keyframing and graph editing. So for anyone who's a bit intimidated to start using After Effects, I hope this gives you some motivation and confidence. This video is just going to be covering the basics, but remember, I have a ton more advanced After Effects tutorials on my channel.
Oh, hi. Hello. It's me, not just my voice. Before we get into today's tutorial, I need to tell you guys about this game that I cannot stop playing, because even if you're not literally securing the bag, you can always secure it fictitiously with Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is a digital version of the board game that we all know and love, but the difference is there's no hassle with the setup or the cleanup. The rules are super simple, so nothing is going to hinder your excitement as you climb through the ranks of the Monopoly Go universe. Monopoly Go is led by everyone's favorite zillionaire, Mr. Monopoly. And there are so many new boards to discover on this app, from real-life cities to imaginative fantasy lands. Me personally, I'm currently dominating in New York. The journey includes buying houses, collecting properties, and ultimately maximizing your rent earnings so you can win the game. It's great to play on the go, pun intended, because the gaming sessions are short and sweet, usually lasting between 5 and 15 minutes. My personal favorite thing about Monopoly Go is the flexibility of the gameplay. You can choose to play with friends and family, or go on a solitary adventure. As an ambivert, I always love to switch up my style of gaming, but I have to admit, I'm usually going for the solo journey. There are also many co-op collaboration opportunities on Monopoly Go, which allows you to reap the fruits of easy riches through community chest events. Alright guys, if you want to become a true tycoon, I highly encourage you to download Monopoly Go, and you can use my customized link in the description to download. Alright guys, let's get into the video.
When you first open After Effects, you're going to be shown this screen, and in the top left-hand corner, I'm going to click New Project. To actually start making your edit, you're going to have to make a new composition. I recommend renaming your composition just for organization, and here you can mess with the dimensions. Right now I'm just using a square, but here are some other popular editing formats. Here you can adjust your frame rate. I like to keep mine at 30, and you can also adjust the length of your composition. Right now mine is 15 seconds long, so I'm going to change that to 5. Click OK, and now you have your composition name here and your composition display up here. Now it's time to add our media, which are our photos and videos, and all of your media, including your compositions, are going to show up on this left-hand side. You can right-click, import file, find your footage, and then open it, or you can just drag it in from your desktop. Down here is our timeline where we do mainly all of our editing, and so we want to drag our media onto the timeline. This blue line right here is our current time indicator, and when you drag it through the timeline, your media shows up on your composition display. Since I want my media to show up right at the beginning of my composition, I'm going to drag my photo to the very beginning of the timeline. Now to cut clips, you're just going to drag your time indicator to where you want the clip to end, and then hold down Shift-Command-D on your keyboard. Then you can just delete the rest. So you may notice that even though our picture is a square, it does not fit into the dimensions of our composition. To fix this, let's make our picture bigger. So first, I'm going to hit this arrow to toggle down on my clip. We have one category right now, transform, and when we toggle down on that, we have a couple different dimensions. Position, of course, allows you to move the position of your clip. Rotation allows you to rotate it. Opacity allows you to fade out and fade in. An anchor point messes around with the orientation of your clip so that it moves or pivots around a different point. There are also a few shortcuts to get to each transform. Hit S to go to scale, P for position, R for rotation, and A for anchor point. So to make this picture fit the dimensions of our comp, I'm going to increase the scale. Now let's talk about these 3 boxes here. These little circles indicate motion blur, which make your transitions look really smooth. To enable it on your clip, you're just going to click the box below it, and that automatically enables it for the entire composition as well. This middle box turns your clip into an adjustment layer, which I won't really get into today. And then this cube enables 3D on your layer, and when we enable it, we can see in transform we have 2 new values for rotation, which are X and Y. Now I'm going to add our second clip to the timeline. I'm going to drag it so it lines up with the end of our first clip. Before we get into the transition, I'm going to do a quick summary on these tools. This first one is our selection tool. It allows us to click and drag. This is our hand tool, which allows us to move our composition. This is our rectangle masking tool. It allows you to make a mask. And if you press down on it, there are other shapes you can use. This one is our pen masking tool, which allows you to mask in any shape that you desire. The last one I'm going to cover is this text tool. It allows you to add a text layer that shows up on your timeline. And if you look to the right, you can adjust the properties of your text. For example, I can highlight it and click this white square to change the color. So just like before, I'm going to increase the scale to zoom it in. And now I'm going to employ a really important method called pre-composing. I'm going to right click on my clip, go to pre-compose, make sure the second option is chosen, and then click OK. And now when we zoom out, we can see our picture is a square. So this is helpful for two reasons. First, it allowed us to change the dimensions of our photo, but if you double click on your pre-composition, you can actually enter the original composition that has your original photo. And so what you can do is add a ton of stuff to this pre-comp. For example, I'll add a text layer, and when you go back to your original composition, the text shows up and you can move it together with the photo. So basically, when you pre-compose multiple clips together, you're turning them into one big clip. This is helpful because when we do our transition, we don't have to do two different types of animation for the photo and the text. So for our transition, I'm going to show you how to do a simple zoom in like this. We're gonna need motion tile for this, which adds edges around the border of your clip. Another really important category on this right side is effects and presets. As you can see, there are a ton of different categories, and I'm just gonna search for motion tile. Then I'm just gonna drag that into both of my clips. You want to increase the output width and height. Anything above 200 usually works. I usually just use 300. That number just sticks in my mind. And whether you decide to add mirror edges is up to you. This is it without mirror edges. And this is it with mirror edges. Now I'm doing the same thing for my second clip. This is really the only effect I'm going to use in this video, but here's a short list of other effects I use frequently. To make smooth transitions, we use a technique called keyframing. Keyframes just assign temporary values to our transform parameters so that it starts at one transform value and then changes to another at the end. It sounds really complicated, but I'll demonstrate. For a zoom in transition, we're going to be using scale. We want the scale to start off normally, which is what this looks like. It's perfectly fit to the composition. So this output right here corresponds to a scale value of 170 for this clip, and we're gonna add a keyframe to essentially lock this value in. So we're gonna click on the little clock to the left of scale, and as you can see, it adds a little diamond to our clip, which is our first keyframe. Now you want to drag your time indicator to the very last frame of your first clip. I'm going to increase the scale. And when I do this, it automatically adds another keyframe for me at the end. And you can watch your animation by pressing the spacebar on your keyboard. As you can see, this is kind of slow and awkward, which is where easy easing and graphs come into play. So highlight both of your keyframes, right click on one of them, go to keyframe assistant, and then click easy ease. This will turn your little diamonds into hourglasses. So for a clip that's going into any sort of transition, we want the pace of the transition to start off really slow, and then as we approach the end, it's gonna move a lot faster. And we can achieve this exponential pattern of motion using graphs. This little icon next to the motion blur is called our graph editor. So if you highlight your keyframes and click on that, you can see the current speed pattern of our transition. And since it's very rounded and not sharp, there isn't any fast motion. Like I said, we wanna make this look like an exponential graph. And to do this, you're just gonna click on these yellow knobs and drag them to the right. How sharp this curve is completely depends on your preferences. If you want something a bit slower, you can drag your knobs back to the left and really just mess around with it. If you click here, you can also use a different graph style, which is value graph. In my opinion, speed graph is more simple and straightforward, while value gives you more flexibility to mess around and adjust your graph. The closer the yellow knobs are together, the faster the transition, and the further together they are, the slower. As you can tell, this arrangement is a little bit faster than our speed graph. Alright, so for our second clip, which is the out transition, we want it to proceed in the same direction as the first and basically follow the same pattern of movement. In the case of a zoom in, our first clip is actively scaling forward, so we want our second clip to be doing the same, scaling forward. If we're talking about a slide transition, let's say, if our first clip is sliding to the right, we would want our second clip starting towards the left and then moving towards the right. Same for a rotation. If we're going from 0 to positive 50 degrees, we would want our second clip to rotate forward, so we would start it at negative 50 and then bring it back to 0. Your first scale keyframe for this clip should be at the very first frame. I'm gonna add a keyframe, and I'm gonna decrease the scale so we can see our borders. I'm gonna drag my time indicator towards the end of the clip, and then bring that scale back to 100. So as you can see, it starts out and then comes forward. Same process as our first clip. I'm going to easy ease these keyframes, making sure they're still highlighted. I'm gonna toggle on over to my graph editor, and now I'll show you what the value and speed graphs should look like for a clip that's coming out of a transition. Instead of bringing our yellow knobs to the right, we're gonna bring them to the left. So this is value, and if I go back to speed, if you want to reset your graph, you can click this little option right here, and then drag your knobs to the left. And this is what the completed transition looks like. Make sure you're clicked on the composition you want to export and not a random pre-composition. Then go up to composition. If you have it, I recommend using Adobe Media Encoder for a fast render, but if not, you're just going to add it to the regular render queue. Click on the render settings right here, and I highly recommend changing your format to the H.264 for high quality and a faster render. If you click here, you can change the name of your output. I'm going to change it to Margot Edit, and here you can select where on your computer it's going to be exported to. And all you have to do here is click render. And there you go, it's all saved. All right guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. And let me know in the comments if you'd like a part 2 to this beginner's guide with slightly more in-depth and advanced concepts. I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are, and bye.